Good afternoon, everyone. This is Manoj S. from Tally Solutions Private Limited, Bangalore, your host for today. So I'll be taking you to the remote access capabilities in Tally.ERP 9. So the agenda for today's webinar session is Introduction to Remote Access, Remote Access Services, Scenarios of Remote Access Usage, then the last one is the product demo. We will see what are all the steps to be followed to configure remote access in Tally product. And last, Q&A session. So Q&A session will be followed with recap session. This is the agenda for today's remote access webinar session. So first we'll see what is remote access. So remote access is a live business data where you need it, when you need it. Remote access capability in Tally.ERP 9 lets you access your business data even while you are away from your office. Why remote access? So not too long ago, getting and it happens pictures for your business and managing data from remote places was a challenge. However, remote access capability with no location and time limit to access business data makes managing your business fast and convenient. So why is it called as a trusted remote? So we'll see in the next slide why is it called as a trusted remote access. So data is never stored anywhere, but the user system which he can trust completely, since machine control will be in the user hand. So in remote access, data will not be stored anywhere, hence it is called as trusted remote access. The user's system will never be visible on the internet. This adds to trust of machine security. So only to those whom you trust can be given permission to access the data remotely. So in case if you don't want to give permission to access the data, you can disable such users from the remote access rights. So due to these three reasons, you can call remote access as a trusted application, trusted remote access. So data will not be stored in any of the machine. You can't take the data backup, and the user will not be able to view the system on the internet also. Remote access services. So you can manage your business from anywhere and from any part of the world. So remote access will help you in increasing mobility of information. So even when you go to your chartered accountant office, so even you can give rights to your chartered accountant and they can access your data remotely. And the sales executive, even when they go to the field and if they want to access, so using the remote access, they can even check the reports. So these are the remote access services. Increasing mobility of information. So in home, when you're free, and if you want to analyze reports and plan for future, using remote access capability, you can access the data even from the home also. And when you are on travel, and if you want to check the bank statement, check the financial reporting, check what is your financial position of the company, check your final statement. So all the reports can be even viewed on travel via remote access capability. And if you are in the customer office and if you want to show any pending orders or what is the stock which is available and to show the total turnover, even from the customer office, you can log in remotely and you can view your report and you can show the orders also from the customer office itself. And in case if you are in the internet cafe, even in the internet cafe, just by downloading and installing the Tally application, you can access the required information of your data. So stay connected through Tally.ERP 9 by mobilizing the information on the move, which will add value to your business with Tally.ERP 9 trusted remote access. So this is all about the increasing mobility of information through trusted remote access capability. So next, field executives are present. So currently, when the field executive meet any customer and if they need any details, usually what they do is they call up the office and take the update required. Based on the update required, the customers will be updated on the relevant details. With remote access or entry capability, like there's a customer called Akash where there's a price negotiation for the goods and the invoice. So the goods and the invoice can be printed from the customer location only through the remote access capability. So through remote access capability, you can print the invoice, you can view the report from the customer location itself. So this will help your field executive to get the right data at the right place using remote access capability. And if you want to audit, if you want to give your books for audit, usually like in your chartered accountant office, like basically the data will be copied and the data will be shared. The data will be copied and data will be shared via an external drive, external disk to the chartered accountant. But through remote access, CA can perform audit from the comfort of their office, which will save time and cost for both the customers and the auditor. So give rights to the auditor. From the auditor office, the auditor can access your data. You can audit the returns, reports, check the data, check the financial statement, and all the updates can be done from his office itself. So you need not to waste time taking your laptop or taking your data to the chartered accountant office. And external remote users like father and expert, a customers or suppliers, a relative, a business friend, a Tally service partner. So remote access rights can be given for the external remote users who can fall under any of these bucket. Like it can be a customer, you can give a remote access rights to a customer or to your supplier only to view his report, to a Tally service partner like to solve any technical difficulty which you are facing in the transaction, to your business friend, father, to an expert to analyze the report, or to a relative. So external remote users can be differentiated in this manner based on the remote access capability. So remote access product demo. So now we will learn how to configure remote access. But before going to the product, if you have any questions, please raise. See, the very important thing is, like when you go to any product implementation or any demo, the first and the foremost thing is you should be knowing what is the importance of remote access, how remote access will help solve customer's current problem. Like if customer is in traveling and if he wants to view his report, or if customer has 2 or 3 office and if he wants to view his report from a different office. So in such case, you have to start talking about remote access capability. So before going to the product demo, if you have any questions, any concerns, please raise your questions through chat or else we'll proceed. Mr. Nazmul has a query, is it mandatory through Tallynet? Yes, the very, very important thing is for doing remote access, the user should be having valid Tallynet subscription. That is, we are calling it as Tally software subscription. So TSS is mandatory for any remote user to access this Tally remotely. It is mandatory. So when you have any users, like their TSS is expired, so for such users, what you can do is you can start talking about the remote access capability and you can start upgrading such customers TSS also. Because most of the customers like who are using the previous version of Tally.ERP, their TSS would have got expired. So start identifying those set of customers, start talking about the remote access capability and the Tally data sync capability, which we have done in a previous webinar also. So when you talk about remote access data sync capability, so you'll have chances where those customers will upgrade their TSS and start using the latest release also. Mr. Shafiul has a query, can salesman make sales order by remote access? Yes, Mr. Shafiul. Through remote access capability, you can give rights for user to pass transactions also. You can make salesman to pass only sales order transaction, salesman to pass purchase order transactions also. You can make salesman only to view the orders but not to pass. So rights can be given through remote access. That provision is there in Tally. Mr. Nazmul has a query. Can we do remote access using real IP? Mr. Nazmul, currently remote access happens only through Tally.net and through real IP. Currently it is not possible to access data through remote access. Okay. So we will now go through the product. We will see how do we configure remote access, how do we deploy remote access in Tally. So what are the steps to be followed to deploy remote access in Tally? So as I have shown in the chart, so there are multi-user and single user. So data goes to Tally.net, and from Tally.net, the remote user, the remote auditors will start accessing the data. So using Tally.net only, the data can be accessed, and without private IP or without any static IP, you can't do remote access. So first and the foremost thing is create remote user. So I've loaded a company. So I'll take you through the product, how to configure remote access and how to access Tally data remotely. So open gateway of Tally. From gateway of Tally, press Alt F3, that is company info. Press Alt F3, that is company info. Go for security control. So before going to security control, very important thing is, in the company, security control should be enabled. That is, while creating any company, the security control should be enabled. This is very important. So go for security control, go for users and password. Go for security control, go for users and password. So in security list, select Tally.net user. So as I said, if you are giving rights for the Tally.net auditor, so in such case, security list can be taken as Tally.net auditor, or if he is a normal remote user like a supplier, customer, or a relative or a business friend, so in such case you can take Tally.net user. So in username, mention the email ID for which the remote access has to be configured. So you have to provide any email ID. So if you are providing a new email ID, a new Tally.net password link will be shared to this email ID. Using that link, you have to generate a new Tally.net password. So using the new Tally.net password, you can log into the company remotely. So I'm giving my mail ID. So cursor will not go to password, cursor will directly go to allow remote access. So the first thing is, in security level, select Tally.net user. In username, provide the mail ID, that is the remote user email ID, so that if he is a existing Tally user, the existing Tally.net password can be used. If it is a new user, a new Tally.net ID link will be shared. Using the link, a new password should be generated. Make allow remote access as yes. So this is very important. Make allow remote access as yes. And if you want to allow any TDLs, any customization files, local files, that can also be made to yes. Allow SMS access. Currently we are not doing SMS. So the main important thing is in security level, select Tally.net user, provide the email ID, make allow remote access as yes. And if you want to add few more users, so before going to few more users, the very important thing which you have to make a notice, for single user, you can have only one remote user at a time. Mr. Nazmul, there is no difference between Tally.net user and auditor. It's only that if he is a Tally.net user, it can be your supplier, it can be your customer, it can be your business friend, it can be your relative also. But auditor means, so he is basically who is taking your data and auditing the transaction. So only to differentiate, the secretary list has been given differently. So as I was saying, for single user, you can have only one remote user. That means you can have only one active remote user at a time. So if you suppose you have two Tally.net user, but you can only have one active user configured, and if you want to use the second user, the first user has to be deactivated and then the second user has to be activated. For multi-user, you can have 10 remote users at the same time. 10 different remote users. You can have 10 different remote users. 10 different remote users at the same time. So you can configure like 8 Tally.net user, 2 Tally.net auditor. So all the 10 users can access to your company at the same time, view report, past transactions also. But for single user, only one user at a time. So when you go to any demo and if any prospect or any existing customer raises this question, for single user, only one remote user. For multi-user, 10 different remote users can be accessed in one instance. So we are accepting for changes, yes. So we have done with create users. We have created user. So any questions, please raise, or else we'll proceed. Yes, Mr. Noor Mohammed has a query. Can we use one email ID for different site? Yes, Mr. Noor Mohammed, you can use same email ID for different sites. It is possible. As the serial number registered will be different, so you can use same email ID for different locations. Yes, for single user, yes. For single user, suppose I have a site license in Bangalore, so I can configure that particular user in Bangalore. I have one site in Bangladesh, Dhaka, so I can configure that single user over there also. So two different single user, but same email ID you can configure. Because when you try to log in as remote user, it will show two different companies. One is of Bangalore, one is of Dhaka. So whichever user wants to access, he can select and he can access. Yes, Mr. Ashok, using remote access, you can create budget variance. You can view the budget report also. Is this clear, Mr. Ashok and Mr. Noor Mohammed? Shall we proceed? Mr. Ashok, like in remote access, you can give full rights to the user. Same like a normal multi-user like a client system, you can give full rights. So user can view all the reports, but only one thing is he can't import the data. That is one major thing in remote access where you can't do. Apart from that, you can view all the reports. Mr. Noor Mohammed, that is, you're using single user and you want 3 users to do the transactions at the same time. Now, currently it is not possible. To remote access, only one user can access the data remotely. That means there will be 2 users. One is the normal user and the second one will be the remote user. Mr. Nazmul has a query, how to configure 50 users. Mr. Nazmul, 50 users will come into picture when you're using Tally Server 9. So Tally Server 9 altogether is a different process. So Mr. Nazmul, kindly provide me your mail ID. I will share you the document of how to configure remote users when you are using Tally Server 9. So please provide me your mail ID through chat, Mr. Nazmul. I will share you the document to configure 50 remote users for TS9 also. Mr. Ashok, like currently, if you are using if you are a TS9, if there is any TS9 customer, so TS9 customer will get 50 remote users plus 10 remote users of the existing multi-user. So totally you will get 60 remote users if it is a TS9. Okay, so I will share, Mr. Nazmul and Mr. Noor Mohammed, I will share you the document of how to configure remote users in case of TS9. So now we will continue. So now we will continue to authorize users. So the second thing after creating users and password is go to types of security and go to Tally.net user. Go to types of security, go to Tally.net user. In use basic facilities of, select Tally.net user. In use basic facilities of, select Tally.net user. And I was saying you can restrict users like to pass transaction, to view transaction, to delete transaction. So those can be done over here. So in disallow, if you say full access vouchers, that means this remote user will not be able to pass transactions but will be able to view only the transactions. Mr. Noor Mohammed, owner and data entry is basically for security control. So here you have to take Tally.net user because you are providing rights for the Tally.net user and not for the data entry operator. Yes, Mr. Ashok, you can create separate security control for remote user. You can create. So in that case, what you can do is, I'll just show you how to give separate security levels also. End of list. So here you can create new Tally.net user, new Tally.net. So here you take Tally.net user, accept it. So in users and password also, so you have to select new Tally.net. So you can create different security levels for different remote user also. So when you take new Tally.net, for this remote user, whatever rights you have given under this security level will be applicable. Go for types of security, Tally.net user, take new Tally.net. So the provision is there in Tally to configure. So you have to educate the customer how exactly the rights can be provided, how exactly the remote access can be utilized. So I have taken Tally.net user. In use basic facilities of select Tally.net user. If you want to restrict any user, you can provide. So I'm taking end of list here. I'm not restricting the remote user. I'm accepting it. So this is authorizing user, that is providing rights for the users. Okay. So now if after providing rights, the next step is you have to create users in security in the control center also. So from gateway of Tally, press Control K. Press Control K. So provide your registered email ID. Provide your registered email ID and Tally.net password. So this should be the registered email ID for the serial number. It is not the remote access username and email ID and password. This should be the registered email ID and password. So provide your email ID and Tally.net password. Enter. So this is the control center screen. In control center screen, go for user management. In control center screen, go for user management. In control center screen, go for user management. So by default, the default security level, that is the default registered ID, will be a user, that is the owner, and the new security levels, that is the new Tally remote user, can be configured like if he is a owner or a standard user. Because for standard user you can define rights saying that he can view the support center, he can authorize users, he can configure TDL. But for owner, he'll be having complete rights for support center, TDL, control center also. So after giving the email ID, make Tally.net user as yes. Mr. Noor Mohammed has a query. Can I delete any users from here? Yes, Mr. Noor Mohammed, you can delete, but you can't delete the default Tally.net user. That is the registered Tally.net user you can't delete. Apart from registered Tally.net user, you can delete other remote users. I'll show you how it can be done. Suppose there is one more remote user. So supposing this is a multi-user, so I'm having multiple remote users. I'm giving multiple email IDs. So as I said, for multi-user you can configure 10 different remote users. So all the email IDs has to be configured under Tally.net, and Tally.net users can be set to yes for 10 different remote users. Enter, end of list, accept. So this is configuring. If you want to delete the remote user, go for user management. You can see here the option called delete. Delete. Accept it. You will go for user management. You'll find one user. So this is how, like you have an auditor, you give rights for the auditor. After giving rights, you want to delete, go to the control center and delete. So the for the auditor will not be having rights to again log in and view your company remotely. In case of single user, like if you want to configure one more email ID, so in that case, for only one email ID, you can make Tally.net user as yes for single user. But for multi-user, 10 different email IDs you can configure at one instance. So while deploying for single user, you should be very careful. For only one remote user, use Tally.net server as yes. So this is where you have to create users in the control center and configure Tally.net user rights. And I'm accepting it. So now log out from the control center. So we have created remote user. I'll just recap once again. To create remote user, from gateway of Tally, Alt F3, that is company info. Go for security control, users and password. Provide the security level Tally.NET user. Provide the email ID and make allow remote access as yes. And go for types of security. Select Tally.NET user. In use basic facilities of select Tally.NET user. And if you want to give any rights or if you want to restrict the remote user, you can provide it over here. Then go to control center, pressing Ctrl K, give the email ID and Tally.NET password. Go to user management and create the Tally.NET user and make Tally.NET user option as yes, so that the remote user will have rights to access data remotely. Then the last step is connect the company. So to connect company, F4, press F4 to connect the company. And internet is mandatory to connect the company, and valid TSS should be also be applicable to do remote access from Tally. So company is connected remotely now. Now I am loading one more Tally. Supposing this is the Tally which you are trying to access from remotely. So from remote location, it's not necessary that Tally should be in license mode. Even if Tally is in education mode, install Tally, open the Tally, go for login as remote user. So it's not mandatory in the client system, or it can be in your laptop, or it can be in a different system where there is no Tally activated also. Install Tally, open Tally in education mode, click on login as remote user. Click on login as remote user. Provide the email ID. So you have to provide the remote user email ID, which is configured. So I'm providing the email ID and Tally.NET password. You can see the company will show in online. So the companies will show in online list. Enter on the company will get loaded, and now you can see you can pass transaction, you can delete transaction, you can alter transaction, you can go to the report, you can generate your report, income and expense account, you can go to accounting vouchers, past transactions. So select on account or whatever reference, enter and accept it. So on accepting the transaction, this transaction will get updated to the primary data location. Mr. Ashok, I have not enabled the budget, so it will take some time. So what you do is try to replicate the same steps and check if you are able to get the budget variance. So once after finishing the session, also I'll also check with budget variance and I'll get back to you. As you have dropped your mail, I'll check and I'll get back to you. Okay, Ashok. Please try to replicate from your side, and if you find any issue with budget through remote access, please write to me. Okay, I'll share my mail ID at the end of the session. So now we can see the company is connected through remote location, the remote ID, everything is provided. So now through any location, or as I said, it can be your remote user, external user, business friend, or if your partner is, if your resource is in the customer place and if he wants to access your company, so just he can go to login as remote user, provide the email ID and Tally.net password, and he can access the company and he can access the report. But in the other location, company should be loaded, company should be connected to Tally.net. Mr. Jacob, there is no ports to be configured in the router. So just do the normal configuration through internet. If you have the internet option, if the internet is connected, through internet, the remote access will get set up automatically. So you need not to give any port number or anything to be specified. Just try to do the same steps, it will be connected. So Jacob, just if you have if you want to set up this remote access any of the client system, so try to replicate the same step. You'll be able to do it successfully. And if you have any issues in doing it, please get back to me so that I'll check and I will check and we will resolve it if there's some technical issues. Mr. Nazmul, there is no specific internet speed we are mentioning, but you should have a good internet speed so that the performance will not go for a toss. So you can see here I am able to view the report immediately. If your internet speed is very low, then the time to open the report, the time to generate the report will take time. Mr. Ashok, like you have any specific errors you found in the customer place where internet is available but the Tally company is not getting connected? Did you find any error in the calculator panel? If you have found any error, please send that error to us so that we'll check and we'll tell you why that error is appearing and what is the solution you're supposed to, what is the resolution steps you're supposed to do to resolve the issue. Because in some cases, if the internet is very slow, then the Tally, the company will not get connected. So in that case, the company fails to get connected. So kindly check and get back to us what is the error message if you are getting while connecting the company. Mr. Nazmul, I didn't get your query. Can you be more specific? So we have done with remote access now. So as I shown you, from the remote place, you can delete, alter, view transaction, and you can restrict the user also, where you can restrict the user not to pass a transaction also. So in our upcoming webinar, we will take remote security control feature. So security control feature will tell you how the rights can be given, how the rights can be restricted for the users to pass transaction, to view, to alter also. So our upcoming webinar session is on security control. So we have done with the product demo. We have logged in as a remote user. We passed transaction. We were able to alter the voucher, delete the voucher, generate report. So any questions from your side on remote access, please raise. We have come to the end of the session. So if you have any questions on remote access, please raise. Or at the time of implementation in any of the prospect place or customer place, if you have found any difficulty, please raise. Because the intention of this webinar is to make you independent and make you more productive. Like yourself independently, you should go and start implementing remote access capability to customers, start engaging and make use of these webinar sessions also. Mr. Ashok, I'll get back to you regarding the budget. Okay. So any other questions, user partners? If you have any other questions, please raise. Apart from Mr. Jacob, there's no such requirement that you should have a static IP. Even if you have a static IP, not an issue, but you should have internet connection and you should have valid TSS in order to do the remote access. So we have come to the end of the session. So thank you participants for attending this webinar session and making use of this session. So we have the upcoming webinar session on security control. Please do attend the session, and if you have any suggestions, please write to my mail ID, that is manuraj.s@tallysolutions.com, and the presentation and the recorded session will be shared to your registered mail ID by end of tomorrow. And if you have any specific requirement, like any specific module webinar to be conducted, please share us the topic also, which webinar we need to conduct. So we will take your suggestions also. Based on that, we will start conducting the webinars. But very, very important thing is start participating in the webinar. So start bringing any issues which you would have undergone at the time of implementation. Start grabbing the knowledge through the sessions. Get productive. Start engaging. So start making use of these webinar sessions. Yes, yes, Nazmul, we will start doing SMS mode everything. So please give your suggestions. We will take all your suggestions. We will validate and we'll start doing the webinars based on the inputs which you have given. So thank you everyone for attending this webinar session. Hope this session was informative to everyone. So we'll start doing such webinars in future also. So start sharing your feedbacks and suggestions to us. So thank you everyone. Have a nice day. Bye. So thank you team. I am winding up this webinar session. Hope this session was informative to everyone. So thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.